Well, we've had a query from a GK Plus user in Western Australia who'd like a quick refresher of tagging, removing and editing and substituting symbols. Every symbol in the design that you see here is tagged to an entry in the database file, and you can see the results of that over here. Botanical name and common name are listed whenever I click on a species. The first thing to get confident about is to change that association. So we'll remove the plant data from that particular. So it's a block called PA21, but there's no association. Pick it again and go to GK Plus and set data to a plant. Let's be rather silly and tag it to Abelia grandiflora. So it's very quick and very easy to change that. You could right click and edit that block, and notice that over here there are some instances. So if we change it to Abelia grandiflora, we probably want to change that colour to a much darker colour, and we'll close the block editor. So notice that all the symbols here have changed, as is the symbols down here. And we wouldn't need to update the plant database file in terms of numbers of species, but if I find that entry Leucophyta, it's actually changed automatically, which is a nice feature. So you can change symbology in that way. But just as we were able to edit this particular one, which is now an Abelia, you can do more sophisticated editing. So if we pick the frangipani symbol, we could pick all of those, hold the shift key down, remove that from the selection set, and say we'll change the colour to, we'll exaggerate to a bright colour, and we'll say they're filled, and then we'll close the block editor, and now the frangipani symbol is changed. But what about a situation where you want a fairly major change? These here are a symbol Eucalyptus caesia, and I put an example over here. It's a beautiful small eucalypt. Speaking of small, if I measure the diameter of that, it's about 1.3 metres. I think that's a little small, so we could dive into the existing one and grab everything there and just right click, drag out, or select everything again, right click and pick scale, nominate a point in the middle and give it a scale of 2. So it should now be 2 point. You put the scale factor of 2, and now close the block editor, and now we've got a larger canopy diameter. Let's measure it again, one side to the other, 2.6. So you can make all those sorts of changes. What about if you want to change the symbols and you had hundreds of them in the design? Well, to use, in a sense, quite a silly example, we can say library plants named, and we can bring in a named version. So Eucalyptus caesia is quite an exaggerated example, and I can insert it into the design. We'll scale it by a factor of 2, so it's almost as large as this one. Probably scale it again. Oh, let's make it in total, let's have it the scale of 4. So here's one that's referred to as Eucalyptus caesia, and this one is referred to as plant symbol 14. We can do something quite clever by picking this one, exploding it, and then wrapping a box around it and creating a block, and that other one that we picked was plant 14. And we need a pick point in the centre, and we can say OK. Now, GCAD Plus says the block, it already exists, you want to redefine it. Well, yes, we do. And there we are. We've redefined everything. I think our scale, because the symbol here, the existing ones were already scaled. This is a laborious way of doing it, but I'll scale all of those. The smart way to do it you've already seen. Dive in here, edit the block and scale this by 0.5. And if I can undo that, what I wanted to do is scale by 0.5, not by 5, 0.5 and enter. Now when we close the block editor, and we can remove this one, we've achieved what we wanted to achieve. It's a long-winded and rather ugly way of doing it. That symbol looks a little awkward and we'll do some rotating. But that suggests to me that we ought to make the symbol more circular in nature. And of course we could do that again by editing, grabbing some of this material here and moving it into the center. We'll close the block editor and I'm sure you get my drift. So it's an illustration that there are lots of ways of changing plant associations.